The hosts of Bracketology are experts in nothing. They claim no advanced knowledge or profound insights. Instead, they are just three judgmental idiots who really like to bloviate their own opinions whenever given the chance. Take what they have to say with a grain of salt, or not at all. You'll probably be better off that way.
All right, guys. We all know that aliens exist. But let's say, hypothetically, an alien flies down to you, where you are, standing outside your house, and says, "We've never been in this galaxy before. Show us the best of what humanity has created." You can go anywhere, get anything, show them any place, anything, up to you. What is the pinnacle of human creation? It could be the Mona Lisa, the 16th Symphony. It could be the entire works of Scott Bakula.
What the fuck's the 16th Symphony? Is that a thing?
Sixth Symphony.
I don't know. I just said a number and then the word symphony. I figured it probably exists out there somewhere.
Yeah, it's the song about the 16th Chapel.
It's the Sistine Chapel, Dan. I know you're from Virginia, but they have history. Sistine.
What are you choosing?
Why are they coming to me?
Because you're the person I'm talking to ask this question, man.
And the government is funding this?
No, government's not funding anything.
Aliens. Fuck that then. I'm taking them to
Taco Bell.
Tooties down the road.
You're taking them to where?
Gunther Tooties. And get some diner food and a milkshake.
I was going to say, Dan, do you know what a Gunther Tooties is?
I do. It's a restaurant.
Okay, just checking. We didn't have them back in Virginia, so I wasn't sure. Wait, see, yeah, if I'm not getting assistance with funding and it's going to be off my own budget, I'm going to get them some cheesy gordita crunches and call it a day.
There's no budget. The alien will gladly take you to any place, any time, anywhere.
So the alien will just basically manifest whatever it is that we're coming up with. So the budget is unlimited then.
Exactly.
That you could have said that.
I would take them.
All right. Do you know? Are you ready?
I think I've got a couple though. I think we'd have like a field trip. You know,
it'd be like an episode of Magic School Bus.
100%. Yeah, I would do. I would do the release of the Nintendo to start.
Okay.
I'd take them to.
Are you sure that's a good idea that we want to introduce video games to them?
100%.
There's a whole lot of video games that's just humans shooting aliens.
Do you know that if their technology allows them to come to us, they can make the best video games?
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
You know what I mean?
They might have already made the best video games.
True. That's true. Maybe this is a video game. Anyway.
Oh, whoa. Whoa.
No, I'd take them to like important parts. So the release of Nintendo or important parts of history. MLK Jr. like speech, just because I think that'd be fun for me. I'd probably take them to the Coliseum to watch some like gladiators fight and shit, and be like, see how far we haven't come. I would then probably take them to the invention of Diet Pepsi. The day that the Cheesy Gordita Crunch came out,
the first day it was ever released,
dude. No, Doritos Locust Taco. That was a big deal.
Dude. No, the Baja sauce that used to be on the CGC. Now, here's the thing: the CGC is still really good, and I love the sauce that comes on it, but it is not the same sauce that it used to be. So I would take them back to then. I would it'd be a wonderful little experience for everybody. Maybe Woodstock. I don't know anything about Woodstock other than when it was and who was there, but it seems important.
Yeah. Just don't get a 99. Make sure they don't mix them up.
Sure. No, we're going to the first one. We're going to the Summer of Love Woodstock, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's we got a whole day planned.
So Matt's going to end his journey with an alien by having hippie sex at Woodstock. Scott, what are you doing?
So, alien can manifest anything.
Anything.
All right. I had some time to think. So, we're going to manifest a concert at Red Rocks. It's going to be headlined by OAR. Opening acts will be Lawrence and Article Sound System. We're going to get a little toasty before the show. We're going to bring in security will be a little lax. We're going to bring in some Taco Bell with us. And it's going to be a beautiful, perfect night. Yeah. And I think that would be the pinnacle of humanity that I'd want to share with the aliens.
Can I give a backup for both of ours?
Sure.
So we have the alien just like, you know what? Never mind.
Okay.
Look, sometimes in my life, I think about what I'm about to say and then I stop saying it.
How about you, Dufa?
I think I would go not exactly the same path as Matt, but a similar route. I'd take them to massive historical events. So some of the creations of Leonardo da Vinci, then up to Albert Einstein, the release of, The Lord of the Rings from Tolkien, the moon landing, that's where I would go. And then I would hope that they would see humanity fit enough to not decimate.
Yeah, see, that was what I was going to say, is that I'd hope that they'd see humanity needs decimating and just manifest a fucking, take us back in time. Let's restart at, year 12.
Matt wants to take it all the way back to before the wheel.
Hey, if it means that people are treated nice, I'm here for it.
Just fix,
but dial up the empathy 100%.
I was going to say, who's to say we wouldn't go back to the same path? Yeah, who's going to say we don't follow the same path?
Because here's the thing, I go back, right, and it's me. And if the aliens can manifest anything, then they can manifest invincibility and immortality. So I'm immortal and invincible. And I take a gun with me with unlimited ammo, right? And then anybody that doesn't want to empath.
Whoa. Yeah. Whoa.
You went hard into dictatorship, permanent dictatorship.
You straight up just became a Marvel villain that. I mean,
we just saw your villain backstory, dude.
Everyone's going to be nice or else.
Just saying, be nice to each other. That's all I want. That's all I want with life.
Hello and welcome back to Bracketology, the podcast that definitively decides all things tournament bracket style. I am the bitchiest, not number one co-host, Scott.
I am the second but number one co-host, Matt.
And I am the best for last co-host, Dan.
I think it kind of tells who wrote those headlines for us. Welcome you all back this week as we continue one of the most unique brackets we've done, that's for sure. Best Bob. Guys, what do we have for us this week? What are our divisions here?
So our two divisions that we're going to knock out, we're going to finish out the first round, include personalities and actors. So personalities really focused on just famous Bobs from time. And actors,
people who are famous for being themselves.
Yeah.
Like musicians or TV personalities like hosts and things like that.
Yep. That's what I said. And then actors are people who act and their name is Bob. So we've got a cool two divisions for today.
Bob or Bob adjacent in one case. But all right, Dan, where do we want to start?
You know what? I think some of the best conversations are going to be with the personalities. So let's start with actors.
We'll make them stick around. Hey, speaking of which, speaking of making people stick around, guys, also, do you know what this episode is by any chance?
Swear to God, if you talk about Dave Matthews poop, I'm going to punch you.
I'm not. That it is the anniversary of that, but it's also a different thing. This is our 25th episode, our quarter century episode.
Ooh.
And so I just want to say before we get into it, again, as we say at the end of every episode, thank you everyone who's listened up to this point. We're still a very, very, very small podcast. When we say thank you, it feels personal because there's only like 25 of you. But any help we can get to change that is greatly appreciated. Please consider sharing this with friends, getting other people to listen. For real, going in, doing reviews, giving us 5 stars on Spotify or ratings and reviews in Apple Podcast. That all of that stuff helps greatly. Social media as well. Trying to get better at being more active on it, but still just having the followers and having the listens really helps. So please consider sharing the podcast. We're at 25 episodes. We want to keep going, but we want to grow it. So
I'd like to give just a little bit of insight into our relationship as co-hosts and dare I say friends. Is that Scott said this is our 25th episode, and I said no, it's not, and I went and counted. It is our 25th episode.
Did you think I just pulled that out of my ass?
Yeah, I thought you were wrong.
No, I checked earlier. I know how to count. I did it twice.
Like I said, insight into our relationship. All right. Actors, who we going with, Dan?
Start at the top.
Yeah, I forgot.
In our completely randomized seating.
Completely randomized seating. We've got Bob Newhart versus Bob Hope, Bob Denver versus Bob Mortimer, Bob Saget versus Bob Odenkirk, and then Bobcat Goldthwait and Bob Hoskins. So, starting at the top.
Yeah.
Bob Newhart versus Bob Hope.
This is probably the toughest matchup in this division, I think.
It's interesting that with the randomization that this was the grouping that happened.
Why is that?
Just because they're
probably two of the most well-known.
The senior Bobs?
They're just more relevant to each other's timelines than anyone else's, and more of that kind of like classic legend status in comedy anyway than the other people that are on here.
So let's first and foremost kind of talk about Bob Newhart. Bob Newhart is most well known from the Bob Newhart Show, probably.
Yep. Checks out.
Bob Hope. I just typed in Hope when I was searching for Bob Hope. Bob Hope, actor, most notable on the Tonight Show for quite a long time. Let's see.
There's a ton of old movies, but he also had the Bob Hope Show.
Oh, Bob Hope Show. That's true.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
He was also really well known for his USO activity.
Yes.
Yeah. So both of these actors have sadly passed away. They are no longer with us. Bob Newhart kind of being the most recent. That happened last month, unfortunately, which is very sad. But, opening arguments is that I looked up both Bob Newhart and Bob Hope to see what their credits are. And the first thing I saw, aside from the Bob Newhart Show on Bob Newhart's page, is The Rescuers. And I didn't realize Bob Newhart was in that, but that's one of my favorite movies of all time. Fucking love The Rescuers. Rescuers Down Under, even better.
Yeah. I used to love watching those movies. Were you also a Fievel Goes West kid?
Fuck yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's the thing. American Tail, on its own, you can take it or leave it. But Fievel Goes West, American Tail 2, that's what I'm talking about.
What about Rock-a-Doodle?
Rock-a-Doodle.
Oh, man. All right, anyway, we're off track.
We might have to do, like, between 30s and 80s Disney cartoons at some point. Loved Rock-a-Doodle. Anyway, Bob Newhart, Elf. He's in Big Bang Theory as a regular recurring guest star. The Rescuers Down Under. Fucking so many things. Young Sheldon, because, it's Sheldon's imaginary friend. so many things.
Wait, is that who he played in Young Sheldon?
Yeah, he played himself as Sheldon's imaginary friend in both The Big Bang Theory and, I believe, Young Sheldon.
Wait, no. I thought in Big Bang Theory he was the TV scientist.
Yeah.
He was like, he played like a Bill Nye type character.
You're right. But yeah, but it's still like Sheldon's imaginary friend. Like when Sheldon goes through his weird like Force dreams and stuff, he dreams of Bob Newhart's character.
Yeah, okay.
But it is a Bill Nye type person.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know. It's been a while since I watched Big Bang Theory. Either way, Bob Newhart has a lot. Elf is a big one. Has a lot of really good credits, like really good credits.
I mean, so does Bob Hope, though. He was in Spies Like Us. He was in Forrest Gump.
Yeah, let us not forget The Road to Zanzibar.
And the Muppet movie. Dude, they both had careers that spanned decades. There's going to be more relevant features for both of them.
Yeah, I'm not trying to take away from Bob Hope by any means. It's just I think the biggest thing for me is just the time period. Like Bob Newhart was still definitely a part of my childhood. I wasn't watching Casanova's Big Night. You know what I mean?
I mean, it is interesting to note, though, that Bob Hope did live to just over 100 years old.
God damn.
100 in a few months. Whereas Bob Newhart, sadly, was about 5 years off from making it to the 100 mark.
Is that a good thing? Like, is that a positive? Like, that feels, if it's me, if I get to 90 and I'm still, hobgobbling around, somebody just take me out at the knees, take me out. But he does have a very impressive career, right? Like Bob Hope is very much, even though his content didn't generally come out in my time, I still knew who Bob Hope was.
Yeah, I think this one, is really the toughest of them because I don't even know if any of the brackets that we've done, if I've ever been more on the fence between two, because I'm with you. Like Bob Newhart definitely had a very solid career for a very long time. And he had this unique dry delivery, especially when he started, it was unique. It's grown more popular since, but his delivery on things was so, I think if I recall right, before he got into comedy, he was some kind of like an accountant or something like that. And that level of energy came through in his comedy. And his career spanned longer into my lifetimes, more familiar with him. Elf is one of my favorite movies of all time, Christmas or otherwise. I love that movie. But Bob Hope, was a household name in his time, and not to say Bob Newhart wasn't too, but again, the USO work that he did, the Bob Hope Foundation, I remember hearing about that growing up as a kid as well. I don't know, just he was kind of like a larger than life personality as well. And so to me, I don't know. It's really a tough toss-up, I feel like my familiarity with Bob Newhart leans me that way, but I feel like the legacy of Bob Hope is greater for some reason.
Fellas, yeah. I think we're going to have to move to a vote.
Okay. All right. How prepared are you for that?
I'm as prepared as I can be.
Okay. Well, I'm going to defer to the two of you first because I want to hear final thoughts as you vote. Whatever. Well, brief final thoughts because we've talked about this one for a while already.
Exactly. I think it just boils down for me. Looking at Bob Hope's credits, he's listed as an actor, credited actor in over 100 things, which is incredibly impressive, right? I don't want to take away from what he's done, but Bob Newhart just speaks to me a little bit more. And again, I think that if we had any kind of consolation prize, it's that I didn't watch much of anything that Bob Hope did or was in, but I still know who Bob Hope is, and I think that speaks to his legacy. And maybe Bob Newhart's recent passing is just on my mind, but I got to give my vote to Bob Newhart.
All right. Well, I'm glad we did it this way because Bob Newhart definitely has a lot of familiarity with me. He's in a lot of the movies, that I really love. I actually remember the Bob Newhart show or the Newhart show and how funny that was. But Bob Hope, like you said, Scott, to me was much larger than TV, and his impact on our society was much larger than just TV because he had the Bob Hope Foundation. He did all those things for the troops. Like he organized all of those shows to keep the morale of the troops up in a time where, that was not easy to do. So my vote is going to Bob Hope.
I hate you guys.
You asked for this.
Yeah. I mean, you guys just freaking really repeated back all of my thoughts, basically. Like you said, Bob Newhart definitely has more relevance for me from things I've actually seen. I mean, obviously, I knew the Young Sheldon part because I argued on it. But that, I don't know, man, that legacy of what Bob Hope, like, Bob Hope was multi-generational. I mean, my grandmother watched Bob Hope movies. My mom grew up with Bob Hope stuff in the house. And then, he was still on like Nick at Night, when I was growing up, and I'd see him on, with Lucille Ball and with, or showing up on Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Like I grew up seeing those clips. I think that legacy is it's stronger. I think Bob Hope's name entered our culture earlier and will last longer, I feel like, than Bob Newhart's. Again, no discredit to him and his career. It's certainly huge, but I feel like Bob Hope gets the vote.
Okay. Bob Hope it is.
All right. Next one, I feel like it's going to be a lot shorter. Bob Denver versus Bob Mortimer.
Okay, so I think first and foremost, we need to explain who these two actors are, which I think that they are very influential in my day-to-day life. And okay. So Bob Denver is Gilligan. If you've never watched Gilligan's Island, I highly recommend it. With the asterisk, it was made a long time ago. Bob Mortimer is a comedian and actor today. He is English. He is from the UK. And Scott and I have watched him on multiple different shows. Just a very, very funny person.
I mainly know him from Taskmaster.
Yes. Big shout out to the Taskmaster.
But I have seen him on, what were some of the, Would I Lie to You and 9 out of 10 Cats. So yeah, he's popped up on other things.
Yeah.
He's common on the variety programs over there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, if I could bring any one thing to the United States, like entertainment industry, it would be the British variety show.
Oh man. Comedy Central tried with Taskmaster and it crashed and burned, but
I know.
I'd love to see Dropout get a chance at it. They could do it, I think.
But
anyway,
I fucking grew up loving Gilligan's Island, like loving it. My family is from Nebraska. I'm not, but my family is, and my grandma lived there in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. And I would go spend the summer at her house almost every year between, I don't know, the time I was 11 and 16, like just because it was get away and do something new, right? And probably the strangest and one of the best parts about it was that she only had about 2 or 3 channels on the TV. One of them was Nickelodeon, so Nick at Night became my obsession. Fucking love those old shows. The I Love Lucy, the Gilligan's Island, the Love Boat, fucking Dating Game, like all of those stupid 50s and 60s TV shows. I love Gilligan's Island. So Bob Denver truly, I thought, was one of the funniest people in the world for most of my childhood.
Dude, I am 100% right there with you. Growing up, my mom made the questionable choice of putting a TV with cable in my room. And you all know me now. I am a night owl. That's always been the case. I was a night owl as a kid as well. And I watched a lot of Nick at Night and Gilligan's Island and Lucille Ball and the Dick Van Dyke Show. And
Dick
even
Van Dyke
later,
Show is great.
Later into Nick at Night when it started showing things like Mad About You. I used to watch that a lot. I used to watch on A&E the Three Stooges would show on there at night. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Bob. But here's the thing. I didn't know. I couldn't have told you his name.
Yeah, so... And I bring him up with Gilligan's Island because recently, as in within the last 3 years, I decided, you know what? I want to watch all of Gilligan's Island again. So I bought all the seasons of Gilligan's Island on Amazon. And there are a couple things. One, also didn't really know his name was Bob Denver until then. And then two, it was made in a different time. And I do not condone all the things that are talked about in Gilligan's Island. However, it definitely was a big hit for nostalgia for me.
How many seasons did you say?
There are 3 seasons of Gilligan's Island.
There's only 3?
I believe so. So the first season is in black and white, and then the next 2 are in color. But most importantly, the first season only credited the men in the credits, and then starting in the second season, they started crediting Ginger and Marianne, and I think the wife was actually credited in the first season, but the wife of
only 3,
the rich guy.
That's crazy. Yeah, nothing problematic about that at all. He also played Gilligan in one episode of Baywatch.
Now that's the other part for Bob Denver is that like that connected in my childhood because the other thing that I loved was Scooby fucking Doo.
Oh.
Oh yeah,
Scooby-Doo connected to all those old shows because they would guest star. Like the Skipper and Gilligan were in episodes of Scooby-Doo. Dick Van Dyke was a constant in Scooby-Doo back in the day. So I think that one has all the nostalgia for me, and that is a big seller for me.
I mean, I think this one's kind of quick in nature. Bob Mortimer is good. I mean, he's not even my favorite Taskmaster contestant. But Bob, I mean, that's crazy. I'm shocked Gilligan's Island's only 3 episodes.
Right.
As impactful in like, or 3 seasons. I mean, sorry. As like, again, culturally recognized as it is, to only have been 3 seasons is mind blowing to me. So that pretty much says everything I need to say.
Yeah. Dan, do you got any thoughts?
Yeah. Short and sweet. I knew that Gilligan was Bob Denver. I, like you and Scott, grew up watching Nick at Night, so all those old shows, including Gilligan's Island, I was always a fan of. I always wanted to know how to make a coconut into a radio. And all of that is because of Gilligan, Bob Denver. Bob Mortimer, not going to lie, had to Google him, and then I saw his face, and I was like, yeah, I recognize him from some of the British comedy, and that's about the extent of my knowledge of Bob Mortimer. So, easy vote for me, Bob Denver.
Yeah, I mean, vote for me for Bob Denver as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that one is easy. We respect Bob Mortimer, but he's not Bob Denver. And also, he's got a cool name, Denver. All right, next up.
Another tough one.
This is another tough one. So you have America's dad, Bob Saget, versus New
America's
Mexico's
dirty lawyer.
Bob Odenkirk. So if you don't know Bob Saget's from Full House. He does incredibly raunchy stand-up comedy.
Did.
And unfortunately,
wow,
is
that's
also
messed
late.
up, man.
He is also a late Bob, in that he passed away. It's been a while now, hasn't it?
I'm guessing has been longer than we think.
Yeah. Bob Odenkirk plays Saul on Better Call Saul. He is in fucking everything. Like, I swear, Bob Odenkirk is one of those like character actors that can be in any movie at any time and not surprise me.
Yeah, he's interesting because he can show up again as like a sleazy lawyer type in a show or whatever, and like a serious role, and it'd be believable. And then he can also show up in like a zany Arrested Development type role, and it's still like he can play either one.
Did you guys see
sorry, go ahead.
The Nobody movies, where he's like an action star?
No, but I really wanted to. I know the ones you're talking about. There's two of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see them. I did not. He also has some significant writing chops too. I mean, going back, him and David Cross working together, and the skit show that they had, like a
Mr. Show with Bob and David.
Bob and David, yeah, that show was
and he's helped
really good.
He's helped a lot of other comedians come up due to writing or helping to produce shows. So one of my favorite podcasts, the Doughboys. One of them started on a show called The Birthday Boys. It was their comedy troupe, and Bob Odenkirk helped to finance and write that. And I mean, I think that speaks to a lot of good that Bob Odenkirk does. All the podcasts I listen to, I don't think any of them have anything bad to say about Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
Which says a lot, because people from Hollywood are willing to dish.
Willing to spill the tea.
Yeah, no shit. But as I introduced him, Bob Saget is America's dad. Like, he was for a very, very long time. Full House alone made him a household name, let alone America's Funniest Home Videos. And then you get into his actual comedy, and he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, that his comedy is funny enough on its own. And then you take the added factor that in your head, because he kind of fell into that trap, and he was able to get out of it because of his comedy, I think. But he kind of fell into that trap where he played that character so long and so well that in everyone's head he was Danny Tanner, and any other role he was going to play was going to be Danny Tanner-esque, except that his comedy saved him from that. But it would fuck with people, because they'd go to his shows, they'd see Bob Saget was coming, they wouldn't know anything about it, they'd buy tickets thinking they were going to see Danny Tanner,
a very family friendly show,
and Danny Tanner would be in their head, and then 4 minutes into his set he would be talking about taking a guy in the audience to Tijuana for a donkey show, and how the guy wouldn't have to hold it in his hand, that he could use a cup and ball, and you're just like, what is Danny Tanner talking about right now? And it goes off the rails. And then he also did other little stuff like what is that movie? The Dave Chappelle,
the
Jim Brewer,
the Half-Baked.
Harlan Williams, huh?
Half-Baked.
Half-Baked. He pops up in Half-Baked talking about doing stuff for drug. Like, I mean, he shocked people in that way, and that's great. I mean, it was hilarious that he was able to span that range and do both sides of that.
Now, I think that, and Dan, you can jump in if you have any thoughts, but I think that helps to cement Bob Saget as the late 20th century kind of iconic Bob for a lot of people, is because of that. Like, he became a meme because of it, like because of that surprise factor, and going from being the straight cut, straight laced, single father of 3 children, I counted 4 because of the twins, but that was my bad. It's huge. He has become very much, his legacy is stamped.
Have either of you seen or are you familiar with The Aristocrats?
Wait, the Aristocrats or the Aristocats?
The Aristocrats.
Yes, I know of it.
So there's a documentary that exists about it. So essentially, The Aristocrats is a joke that exists within the comedy world that comedians tell each other. And the opening of the joke and the end of the joke are always the same. But the middle part is where the comedian gets to shine. And essentially, the idea is that these people go into a talent scout and they say, we want to show you our act. And they do this disgusting, heinous, just incestual, nasty, whatever you want to make it, terrible thing in the middle. That's where the comedian gets to improvise. And then at the end, the horrified talent scout is like, that's terrible. What do you call it? And it's The Aristocrats. That's the whole thing. But they made a documentary where all these comedians talked about it, and they all told their own versions, and they all talked about like its origin, its history, and everything. And they all said that Bob Saget was the worst, most disgusting, most impressive person to tell the joke. Like, he would gross people out of the room with the things that he would come up with. And the craziest thing about that to me is that, having seen him in the late stages of his life, and then hearing the stories and the recollections about him afterwards, it seems like in his day-to-day, he was more like Danny Tanner. But he leaned into it and became Danny Tanner when he was on the show. But man, when he needed to go on stage, he could flip a switch, and it was a strange switch. But he had it, and it was a talent. And it was respected by his peers.
So, fellas, trying to keep the interest of time, we should probably move this to a vote, even though I haven't shared my thoughts.
No, man, we still got some time. You got to remember, if you're watching that timer up at the top, that we have 2 cold opens.
I know.
Now Matt has to do some editing.
But look, Bob Saget, like you were talking about, that he would screw with people because you would think Danny Tanner and then you would see a stand-up, and it's 2 totally different things. I was one of those people that I remember, like, I watched Full House. I definitely watched America's Funniest Home Videos with my mom. And that was my, like, interpretation of Bob Saget. Like, he was always clean, straight-laced, funny, but, nothing remotely close to offensive. And then one day I saw his stand-up, and I was like, what the hell? That's insane. And it is really funny, but it's a sharp right turn. Bob Odenkirk, I think we all famously remember him as Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. But he has a laundry list of things that he's been in, including things that, don't necessarily fall into that same line. Like with Bob Saget, he was either like extremely raunchy or he was, the TV dad. Those were his 2 like places. Odenkirk, on the other hand, has quite a range. Like, he's the sleazy lawyer. He's been in, the action hero role. He has done voiceover work. He was in The Incredibles 2. A lot of comedy writing he's done. He was in Fargo, How I Met Your Mother. Like, dude's everywhere. It's, a little bit tougher than I initially thought it was going to be to make this vote.
I think... Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, you said that Bob Saget played either ends of that spectrum. I find it funny you mentioned that Bob Odenkirk was in How I Met Your Mother as his last credit that you said, because Bob Saget was the voice in How I Met Your Mother for the whole series.
Yeah, and you know how that series ended?
I mean, look.
Blame Bob Saget for wasting my time for 8 years.
For telling you that crap story.
Right, yeah. That's Bob Saget's fault.
Look, I think we should move it to a vote, and I think that it's important for us to recognize that we're a growing podcast and we're trying to gain listeners. And the easiest way to do that, vote for Bob Saget. Bob Saget gets my vote.
I mean, we'd be crazy to vote for. Again, no disrespect to Bob Odenkirk, but we'd be crazy to vote for him over Bob Saget.
I think it's more that we're not voting against Odenkirk. Like,
right.
If he was up against somebody else, he likely would get votes. But in this particular matchup, we're voting for Bob Saget. Dan?
Yeah. Bob Odenkirk does make it a little bit difficult because I like the support that he's given to other writers. I love some of the things that he's been in. But it's Bob Saget.
Yeah, he's not Bob Saget. And that's really what it comes down to. So then that takes us into our last matchup for the actors. Bobcat Goldthwait, Bob Hoskins. Two people with Bob in their name. Who wants to start? So I'll start with I didn't know who the fuck Bobcat Goldthwait was.
Really?
I don't know why this surprises you people. Yeah, really.
That's true.
Like, I don't.
He was in multiple movies that we talked about during the 1980s.
Yeah, he was in Police
movies
Academy.
bracket.
Sure, but that doesn't mean that he was the person that I was watching. You know what I mean? It looks like most of his credits, honestly, are animated, which is really cool.
He had a very specific voice. Or has, I should say.
Which is cool. I do appreciate that. But, like, I just don't... He was in Crank Yankers for an episode.
Really?
I love the order of this. So, okay. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command in 2000. It was a TV show. He was a voice for 5 episodes. Then, still in 2000, G-Men from Hell. Then 2001, Blow. Then 2002, Mickey's House of Villains.
He's got range.
He's got range, man. He was in Hercules, the TV show.
He was also in Hercules, the movie. He was the voice of
the
Pain or Panic, one of the two of them.
It says Pain.
Okay, there you go.
Which ones are those? The two little like people that are flying around, the little devils or whatever.
The two little henchmen for Hades. Yeah.
Mad TV, like that's great.
The two little henchmen from Hercules, the one whose voice you remember.
I don't.
That's Bobcat. You don't remember their voice? You don't remember? Oh my gosh.
He was in Herman's Head as Jealousy.
So do you know what Bobcat Goldthwait sounds like?
No.
Okay, you need to find a clip of him talking.
All right, y'all discuss. I'll be right back.
All right, go listen to Bobcat Goldthwait talk.
All
he also had a significant stand-up career. I mean...
Yes, he had a huge stand-up career. That's what I think got him into everything else that he did.
I think so, too. People saw him there and were like, we could use that voice for stuff.
But on the flip side, so we've talked a lot about Bobcat Goldthwait. Also, we did not mention the fact that he has an amazing name. But
yeah, that's true.
Bob Hoskins, on the other hand, was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I think we know from previous episodes how you feel about that movie. He was in Super Mario Brothers. Say what you want about that movie.
Dude, he's the
John
only reason
Leguizamo.
That movie was any kind of palatable.
Yeah.
No, John Leguizamo carried a significant amount of weight in that movie.
But Bob
as
Hoskins was the main character.
How? Okay. Well, never mind. That's probably for a different episode.
I'm also going to mention that he was in one of my absolute favorite movies as a child.
Hold on, let me guess. Mermaids.
No.
Okay.
Hook. Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman, Bob Hoskins.
Bob Hoskins as Smeagol.
Yeah, Smee.
Yeah, I guess.
What about Smee? Smee.
I'm gonna edit that.
I don't know. You seem more like a mermaid's kid to me.
So
yeah, this one is actually kind of tougher than I thought.
I did look up Bobcat Goldthwait and listen to him for 8 seconds and wanted to rip my eardrum out.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Wow. Okay.
But it is iconic. Like, it is very much. This is also like comic relief from fucking, I don't know, 2007
Yeah, so his
BC.
I found it actually. His television debut was on an episode of David Letterman in 1983. So definitely started stand up first before transitioning into film and television.
I can't listen to this dude for very long at a time. To me, I think Bob Hoskins was definitely like, he was he's, you know, Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the Mario Brothers movie, as absolute dog shit as it is. He was kind of like a dad, you know, like to people with absentee dads across the world. My dad was there, but you know, he definitely had that, like, he was dad bod before dad bod existed.
As Mario and the detective in Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, I mean, he was fucked up in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right? He wasn't in a good place, his character at least, but like, he was iconic in it.
Okay.
There are four things everybody remembers about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit, Jessica Rabbit, Christopher.
Why do you say like that, you creep?
Christopher Lloyd, and Bob Hoskins as the detective. Like, he plays against, before CG really existed, really, before you could mix animation and live action in a way that was not just memorable but timeless in a lot of ways. Bob Hoskins acted against nothing. Like,
yeah.
It's impressive.
How do you feel about Bob Hoskins afterwards saying that he hated the Super Mario Brothers movie and that he blamed it for the downfall of his career?
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I 100% agree with him. Like, it was sad because, like, I think every kid who grew up with a Nintendo wanted a Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, it was not his fault that the production team, the movie studio, the screenwriters, everything failed around
costume
him.
Design, like, those fucking Koopas are terrifying. That stuff.
I almost feel, though, like we appreciate it more because we had to get it in our 30s, or in Dan's case, 40s.
What?
The Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, the animated one.
Yeah, like, to get a good one. Like, I feel like we appreciate it more.
There was a very good sort of animated show for Mario Brothers.
Hold the fuck on. Are you saying that's very good?
I liked it when I was growing up. 100%. Not the TV show.
Yeah, no, I'm aware. It wasn't good.
All right. Anyway, getting a little sidetracked.
As we do.
Fellas, do you think you're ready to vote?
I mean, I'm ready to vote. This one's
surprisingly difficult.
This one's pretty easy for me, to be completely honest with you, because I don't know Bobcat Goldthwait, and I can't stand listening to him talk in the stand-up. I'm going to vote for Bob Hoskins.
Man, I don't know. I feel like Bob Hoskins only has really 2 credits that mean squat to me. Whereas Bobcat Goldthwait, I feel like, has a few more. Even if a lot of them are just voiceover work or voice actor work, that voice is still, like, I can hear pain or panic or which one was it? Pain in my voice, like in my head. I know that voice. And I loved the Police Academy movies when I was a kid, or, you know, growing up. As one does when they're a kid. Man. But I recognize that Bobcat Goldthwait's credits as a whole probably are not as impactful or talked about as Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Super Mario Brothers, and Hook for that matter too. Yeah, I guess.
Can I throw one more thing out in kind of support of Bob Hoskins? Because I just found this out. Did you know that they made a sci-fi, the Sci-Fi Channel made a mini series called Neverland, and Bob Hoskins was Smee in 2011.
I did not know that. I guess, yeah, sure. Bob Hoskins.
All right, Daniel?
Dan?
My vote's irrelevant, but I agree. Even though Bobcat technically has a more storied career, he has more credits to his name. Bob Hoskins has been more impactful to me personally. And since I think their societal impact is relatively equal, I'm going personal impact. Hook.
All right. So the Hook sidekick moves on, and that takes us through the actors division. We will now move into the personalities division. Personalities, again, kind of people that are known for their personalities, really talking about the people more than who they played on things. So we've got Bob Costas and Bob Barker.
Jesus, that's tough.
Bob Dylan versus Bob Marley. Bob Seger versus Bob Ross. And then Bob Vila versus Bob the Drag Queen. So start at the top.
Oh, I hate you for putting this. This is the first matchup.
Well, again, the rankings, to reiterate from last week's episode, are completely random. And while Scott is trying to talk on mute, I will continue to speak.
Yeah, completely randomized. My bad.
Bob Costas versus Bob Barker, our first matchup. Man, this is immediately right out the gate kind of difficult because, again, I'm going to go back to like the memeability. Bob Barker has been in the public conscious for so fucking long, to this day, right? And in a lot of ways, similar to Bob Saget, in a very family-friendly way with Price is Right. But he also made some splashes with, you know, more lewd humor. Maybe not lewd, but more risky humor. The Price is Wrong, bitch.
I say that, but that's only one credit.
Yeah.
And that's also Adam Sandler saying that to Bob Barker. Bob Barker was really nice and then just beat the crap out of Adam Sandler.
Yeah, and that was fucking hilarious.
Oh, 100%.
Now, Bob Costas, on the other hand.
Dude, so tough, man. I grew up listening to Bob Costas. You guys know I love sports. Yeah. So he was in so many things that I watched just from a sports perspective. But, I mean, he's also had a lot of, you know, movie and TV shows. Like, he has voice characters on The Simpsons. He was in Monk. He voiced characters on the Cars, like that franchise. He's been voiced on Family Guy. Like,
yeah. Now I do.
So tough.
I do want to throw one thing out because I don't think this is ever going to be called out in a lot of things. So Bob Costas, I'm on his Wikipedia currently. Does anybody want to guess what the fuck his middle name is?
Eileen.
You're honestly kind of close. Dan, without Googling, you fucking dirty rat. What do you...
No clue.
Quinlan. Robert Quinlan Costas. What a name.
I think that, like, I see where you're coming from with Bob Costas and his relevance. Like, I mean, for me, being a pro wrestling fan, his interview with Vince McMahon is like, it's an iconic moment in pro wrestling history. And then, like, if I think back to growing up and like Michael Jordan getting interviewed after a game, it's in my head, it's Bob Costas doing that interview.
Yeah.
But I think we have to, again, recognize that we are three cis white dudes which means we all enjoy sports. So Bob Costas has a relevance to us there. Not everyone enjoys sports. Bob Costas is not going to be relevant to a significant amount of the population who does not care about sports. Bob Barker, on the other hand, was there with you every morning at 11 a.m. when you were homesick from school, whether you were male, female, anywhere in between. If you were actually sick, if you were faking sick, it doesn't matter. Demographics out the window. Bob Barker is relevant for everyone.
I have an argument against that because I think we've dated today's recording, which is August the 8th of the year of our Lord, 2024. But it's the middle of the Olympics, yo. And Bob Costas is the voice of American Olympics for a very, very long time, thanks to his partnership with NBC. And while a lot of people aren't into sports, the one type of sports that generally gets non-sports people into it is the Olympics.
There are still plenty of people who do not give two shits about athletic competition, period. I mean, yeah,
but there's plenty of people that probably didn't care about The Price is Right.
I mean, true.
And there's clearly a large number of people that don't care enough to get their pets spayed or neutered, like Bob Barker requested on every episode of The Price is Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Bob Costas still doing the Olympics coverage this year? I haven't seen him on anything.
This is the first year he is not doing Olympics coverage.
I think he retired.
I just looked it up, but his tenure with NBC Sports ran from 1980 to 2019.
So, he
was received 28 Emmys for his work and was the primetime host of 12 Olympic Games from 1988 until 2016. Like, I think that alone, he's the announcer for American sports in the Olympics. But I see your point. Do you have anything else, or Dan, or you want to get to a vote?
I vote Bob Barker.
Wow, you just went right out the gate with it.
My competitive spirit kicked in thinking about The Price is Right.
Daniel?
Look, Bob Costas was the voice of my youth, man. Like, every single sports event that I was interested in connected to Bob Costas somehow.
Yeah, and some you're not interested in. Fucking Kentucky Derby, and I'm assuming.
I was not a big fan of watching golf, but I can't imagine, too many other voices other than Bob Costas like talking about it. That being said, some of my favorite memories growing up were pretending to be sick, staying home with my grandfather, and watching The Price is Right. Like, Bob Barker is a huge part of my childhood and had a huge impact on me. Plus, I grew up in a very small town in Virginia, and The Price is Right would frequently have Pulaski furniture. Scott, you know where Pulaski is. It's very close to where I grew up, and it was cool as hell to see something that was made 30 minutes down the road from me on TV. I always wanted to go on The Price is Right. Bob Barker, come on down.
Look, I think
you fucking dork.
I think that I really knew immediately that Bob Barker is going to win this matchup because it's Bob fucking Barker. Like, it's just everybody knows who Bob Barker is. We grew up wanting to spin the wheel, and like for someone. Plinko. For someone who was molested by fangirls every day of his fucking job, he held it together in every possible way. But I do...
You've just really got to be careful giving such a long pause after the word molested, because I did not know where that sentence was going.
Same.
It was so scary for a heartbeat or two.
This is the literal definition of molested. But I really wanted to give Bob Costas his due, because I think that he is a true, like, OG Bob. You know what I mean? And he is, he was a very important part of a lot of people's lives and watching sports and enjoying sports. So, but yeah, Bob Barker would get my vote as well. So Bob Barker moves on. What is our next mashup?
Next up, we got Bob Dylan versus Bob Marley in one hell of a bob off.
Man, I think that randomizer had it out for us.
Yeah, because this is, oof. I mean,
Bob Hope and Bob Newhart, Bob Saget and Bob Odenkirk, and now Bob Dylan and Bob Marley. Like, it's not nice.
Two music icons that shifted the way we think and listen to music. Bob Dylan has had a tremendous career. And what's funny is that one of his, most famous songs gets used for political means all the time by, candidates that clearly have never read the lyrics to that song or understand its meaning, which is kind of funny. I mean, then you have Bob Marley, right? And that style of music obviously existed before him, but he brought it to the main stage. He introduced the world to his music and his culture in a way that I don't think anybody else ever could.
Mm-hmm.
It is, giants.
It was such a brief career, but it was so impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still pictured on stuff all the time.
Well, and what?
And I mean, his son and his band are still are still carrying on, his music.
Yeah, and what kid didn't hear about the way that Bob Marley passed away? And just how sad and even if you didn't enjoy reggae music that much, like I think that was impactful for a lot of us as we were growing up, is hearing about Bob Marley passing away. But to Dan's point, Bob Dylan, literally the blurb from Google is often considered to be one of the greatest songwriters in history. Like, it's just, that is a hell of a thing to say about somebody. And it's true. Like, even for somebody who doesn't listen to music, like, ever, in myself, I know almost all of his songs. Like, that's just Bob Dylan, man.
Did you guys know Bob Dylan also contributed writing credits? Well, he was the original writer of quite possibly one of the most popular karaoke songs of our time.
Which one is that? The Vanilla Ice?
No, Wagon Wheel. He was the original writer of that song. He never finished it. And then a different band finished it and recorded it. And then Darius Rucker also finished it. Or not finished it. He re-recorded. But anyway...
I've never heard this song
and
before.
You brought up Bob Marley's son. Bob Dylan's son also followed his father, and he drove around with that one headlight.
Really?
Really what?
What do you mean drove around with that one headlight?
The lead singer of the Wallflowers?
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I didn't realize that was
a little vague.
His son. Yeah.
Yeah. Bob
no,
Dylan's
it wasn't
son.
a little vague. It was just surprising that when I said really, that Dan didn't understand what I was asking him.
I didn't. It kind of blows my mind that you did not know that little piece of trivia.
No, I did not. I did not know that.
Did y'all know that Bob Dylan is still with us? Like, he's still alive?
Yeah.
83 years old.
I saw Bob Dylan perform in like 2008, I think it was.
That's cool.
That was an interesting experience. Couldn't really understand a fucking thing he said.
And he does. So Bob Dylan definitely has a very specific sound.
Bob Dylan was mumble rap before mumble rap, which is more poetic, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that can be said about both of these guys, but their contributions to music are unmatched, truly.
So which one do we put through?
I don't want to vote on this one.
I think that the premise of the show demands that you have to vote.
There's a good reason. Again, as we've covered in the past, there's a reason why we kept it an odd number of hosts.
Other than that, we're our only friends.
Yeah, we don't really like other people.
All right.
I don't know, man. I think for me, because like Bob Dylan is used in his music is used in so many TV shows that I enjoy. Like one of the best episodes of Supernatural includes Knocking on Heaven's Door. There are so many things that Bob Dylan has been a part of, but even though I don't necessarily enjoy like the reggae style of music as much as some of my other co-hosts, Bob Marley's got to get my vote, man. Bob Marley he's so iconic for so many reasons, but if you put a picture of Bob Marley in front of people versus a picture of Bob Dylan, almost everybody could probably name Bob Marley. And I think that cultural impact is just too big. Daniel, what do you think?
Dan, how about you?
Scott, why don't you go?
Because we both called on you. I mean, I think that Bob Marley's career will, again, it had a really significant impact for as short as it was. But I think Bob Dylan was like a voice of a generation, you know? He, especially at a time when our country was really kind of redefining itself and was kind of at odds with itself. He was a voice in that time frame, and he was heavily influential that way. And I think that legacy, while it may not be as marketable as Bob Marley's is, it's more lasting, and it has more gravitas. So my vote would be for Bob Dylan.
Wow. All right. I'm a little surprised on that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Bob Dylan was the voice of a generation in a very difficult time. But Bob Marley was the voice of an entire culture. And I don't think that can be understated. You could take the other deciding factor for me, other than societal impact, was obviously their music. And you could take, to me, Bob Dylan's best song are The Times They Are Changin'. Love that song. It always hits home with me. But I would put almost every song from Bob Marley up against that. If I had a box of Bob Marley songs and a box of Bob Dylan songs, I'm choosing Marley.
Yeah, and I think, like, look, he shot the sheriff, but he did not shoot the deputy.
It's true.
No, you're corny as fuck.
Look, y'all have been too serious in this episode, and I got to bring something to the table. So
it's a very serious decision that we're making here.
Scott, what's our next mashup?
Up next, we've got Bob Seger versus Bob Ross.
So Bob Seger, for those of you that are uninitiated, like myself, I had to look him up.
What?
Also a musician. I don't know why things surprise you about me anymore, honestly. Like, we've known each other long enough.
These are incredibly famous people that have done incredibly famous things.
Okay. So I'm looking at Bob Seger's list of songs because he is a musician. Old Time Rock and Roll. I might know that song.
Oh my God.
Moves,
you got to be kidding.
Turn the Page, Against the Wind, Shame on the Moon. I don't know any of this shit. So.
Oh my God. Literally, dude.
How? I just don't understand how. Like, did you not have radios growing up?
Look, my parents controlled the radios. Alf? Yeah, I know Alf.
Yeah, he
eats
danced
cats
around to Old Time Rock and Roll.
But because I know Alf doesn't mean that I remember every episode. So, but it's Bob Ross, y'all. Like, let's be real. Bob Seger seems to have been a pretty influential musician, according to Google. But Bob Ross, to this day, is still inspiring people with those happy little trees. So much so that Dan and myself were at Scott's house the other day, and what was playing on the TV? Bob Ross.
It is the default when I turn on my TV. For some reason, it defaults to like built-in Samsung free channels over the internet or whatever, and there's a Bob Ross channel that just plays his Joy of Painting on repeat all day, over and over and over.
He has his own channel,
and that's the default channel that it pops up to.
That is an argument that, to me, cannot be shot down. Like, Bob Ross is a vibe.
Yeah, but so is old time rock and roll, and it has been since 1978. Night Moves is a whole different vibe, and it has been since 1976. So there might be some people listening who have Night Moves to thank for their existence.
Yeah. Also, Against the Wind. Dude, there's so many songs that he has been a part of or created.
Look, I fully anticipate being yelled at by many people for not really knowing Bob Seger. Sorry.
Deservedly so, bro.
Yeah.
Don't know what to tell you, but Bob Ross I grew up with, and there are fun things about Bob Ross that everybody should know if you don't already.
Are you going to talk about like his career prior to becoming a TV painter?
I was thinking about
like
it, yeah.
He was in the military?
Dude was a military.
No, specific.
Dude was a military man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Go for it, Scott.
No. By all
That's
means,
what
Pat,
I was
you
going to talk
introduced it.
about.
I know you introduced the topic. I tried to be vague, and Dan just went ahead and said it.
Okay.
But
sorry.
What was it that he specifically did, Matt? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up again. But
He was a drill sergeant.
Yep.
He took up painting and enjoyed painting so much because he had spent his entire career yelling at people, and he didn't want to do it anymore. So he found the joy of painting.
And that's what he named his show. 1961, he enlisted in the United States Air Force. He was put to service as a medical records technician, which sounds like the most boring thing to do in an armed service. But also, he probably wouldn't have gotten shot at much. Master Sergeant, served as first sergeant of the clinic of the Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska. Dude has lived a life. Like, he lived a fucking life. But what did he...
He also served in Vietnam. I mean, he was in the Air Force, so I don't know how close he got to the action.
You can also buy a chia pet where the chia grows into his afro.
And he fucking popularized the afro for a lot of people. Like, let's be real. Like, how many people... I guarantee you, when we were kids, there was somebody probably at every school that had more than 20 people in it that dressed up as Bob Ross for Halloween.
Attacked.
Like, that was a great costume, but everybody knew it.
It still is a good costume, but people everyone will know who you
100%.
are.
Yeah.
Somebody dresses up as Bob Seger, not going to know who the fuck
a light blue shirt, dark blue pants, a palette with paint on it, and an afro. And, yeah, you're golden.
So, to me, this isn't even an argument, and it's Bob Ross, man. It's...
I just want to be clear, and again, in interest of time here, I don't think that for Dan and I it's an argument either. I think it's just more upsetting that this is yet another bad take on you and your opinions and your life experience. The fact you have no frame of reference when we say old time rock and roll is genuinely it's upsetting. But you're right, Bob Ross definitely wins this this matchup.
And yeah, Matt, it blows my mind that, I mean, they've been used in so many different things, in movies, in commercials. Like, his songs have been everywhere. But Bob Ross still gets my vote, man.
Yeah.
There's no mistakes, buddy. Just happy little accidents.
Just happy little accidents. And realistically, I'm happy to take my lumps as someone who has previously said I don't really listen to music. I'm good with that. Like, you come at me. Like, I don't give a shit.
There's just some things where, like, I don't listen to music is not a good enough excuse. You'd have to be more like, you know those blinders that horses wear when they're racing? You'd have to tell me that you went through your teenage years wearing those for me to understand how you missed some of the things you missed.
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go ahead with the next
one. Hold on. Are you ready to be more pissed off at me?
No.
Oh my God. If you tell me you don't know who Bob Vila is.
No. Most of my childhood and my teenage years, when music became the antithesis of Matt, was because my parents controlled all the radios and played one artist who I hate more than any other artist in all of music.
Who is it?
His name's Garth Brooks. Fuck that.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
That's all I heard. That's all I heard for 12 years. And I hate it.
I can understand and relate. My mom was a little unhealthy level of an Alan Jackson fan. Yeah, and to this day, I cannot stand listening to Alan Jackson. That was my grandma.
Dude, my grandma in Nebraska, who I talked about earlier in this episode, had a fucking portrait of Alan Jackson on her wall.
My mom had a life-size cardboard cutout of Alan Jackson in her room.
Same for my grandma.
Did we just become best friends?
Dude, cannot stand Alan Jackson to this
Granny
day.
Sweet was in fucking love with Alan Jackson, and well, anyway. So
but Garth Brooks, man, are you kidding me?
Yeah, there's a difference between those two artists. Garth Brooks is good.
The GOAT. Yeah.
I can't stand
Alan Jackson is mediocre at
cannot
best.
stand listening to Garth
I don't
Brooks.
know about that, but
so that gets us into our last matchup of the day. Bob Vila versus
long episode.
Bob the Drag Queen. I do know who Bob Vila is, by the way. My dad was obsessed with home improvement just in general, just like almost every dad from the 80s and 90s. Like, he had the Orange Book from Home Depot, all of them, from every year, because they released books every year that said, here's how you do things. He watched Bob Vila. He watched Home Improvement, and Bob Vila was a semi-frequent guest star on Home Improvement as Tim the Toolman Taylor's arch rival. I loved Bob Vila. Like, he was honestly pretty educational. Similar to Bob Ross, Bob Vila was inspirational for a lot of people that would then passionately take up construction in their lives. Bob the Drag Queen, more recent knowledge about Bob the Drag Queen, because I don't know that they've been in pop culture for more than 5 to 10 years, maybe.
Won the 8th season of RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't know how long ago that was.
Yeah, who the hell knows?
Yeah. That was 2016? Yeah, that was 2016.
I think it's important to say, like, drag is an art in a lot of ways, and something that I think it's gotten more recognition in the last 10 years or so, but it definitely could still get a lot more. But still recent.
Bob the Drag Queen was named the 8th most powerful drag queen in America in 2019.
Most powerful? Like, kind of superpowers.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what superpowers Bob the drag queen is bringing to the table aside from fabulousness.
I mean, and that exists.
Yeah, that's all she needs.
Maybe it's just not necessarily my frame of reference. I'm not a big fan of reality TV shows in general. And so, RuPaul's Drag Race has never made it across my television screen per se. I knew who Bob the Drag Queen was, just for, again, cultural zeitgeist, but I feel like, man, in the 90s, Bob Vila was like a household name,
Yeah.
Between This Old House and appearances on Home Improvement and being on like late night shows and playing himself in a number of different programs. Like I mentioned Home Improvement, but he did it in a lot of other things, I feel like, as well.
He was in Hot Shots Part 2.
I believe it. Yeah. I mean, he was just in so much that
Well, and I
He's
think that
78 years old.
Like
he's still around and kicking.
He's kind of the Emeril Lagasse of home improvement shows, right? Like they spawned full TV channels, full networks based on what he started.
HGTV was like the Bob Vila channel for sure.
You know, and I think that says a lot to somebody's legacy. And like, still to this day, someone can say Bob Vila. I know exactly who he is, and I do know who Bob the Drag Queen is as well. But Bob Vila was a big part of, honestly, what was on my TV when I was growing up. It was Bob Ross, it was Bob Barker, it was Bob Vila. There were a lot of Bobs on my TV when I was a kid.
There is still a bobvila.com that you can go to get guidance and tips on how to do everything from attics to basements and in between.
That's wild.
Interior, exterior, lawn and garden. I mean,
honestly, I didn't know he had a website, but now that I do,
he also has a Twitter and an Instagram.
Okay, I'm gonna follow Bob Vila right now on Instagram.
So, yeah, I have seen RuPaul's Drag Race on more than one occasion, and I remember seeing Bob the Drag Queen on there. I think Bob the Drag Queen also, it is on tour, very active on social media, and has a super big following. But when I was growing up, I watched Bob Vila and actually used that information to fix stuff around the house, and it's knowledge that I have taken with me throughout my adulthood. And I did know that Bob Vila still had a website that could tell you how to fix things around your house, because that's what Bob Vila is known for. And I have to imagine that Bob Vila's impact on anybody that watched him and learned and made their house better has been huge. So I know, me personally, I'm ready for a vote.
Yeah, I think I am too. And I mean, I can definitely throw it out and start. As much as I appreciate RuPaul's Drag Race, and I do want to say, like, I knew who RuPaul was because of Nick at Night back in the day. But that's how I learned about RuPaul. So I knew about RuPaul's Drag Race. I knew about what drag was, and then I learned more about it as I became older and can respect it for the art that it is. But Bob Vila is a part of my childhood, part of, who I am. So Bob Vila gets my vote.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Bob Vila was a household name, and
still is.
I'm saying a lot of households might still be. So I think Bob Vila has to move forward in this one as well.
This might be the toughest division in all of the Bobs.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically,
this next round is going to be hard.
Personalities as a whole are definitely a much more vague thing. Like, at least the other ones we have something to go off of other than just like, who are they? So it is going to be difficult. So what's your official vote, Dan?
Bob Vila.
Okay. So that moves Bob Vila on to the next round, where we will determine further on who is the best, or what is the best Bob, because we still have an item in the bracket with the bobsled.
If you guys don't agree with us, feel free to let us know on all the social media platforms. Leave us a comment in the YouTube. Send us an email. Tell friends about how angry we made you and tell them to go to Spotify.
Also follow at Bob Vila on Instagram.
What is our handle, Dan?
It's Bracketology, BRACKETALLOGY. And you can find us on all the social media platforms, and we would really appreciate it if you did.
We want to thank Aaron O'Donnell from Aaron O'Donnell Music on YouTube for the track here at the beginning and end of every episode. We also, again, want to thank everyone for listening and encourage you to share the show. Next week, as Matt alluded to, we will be back to dive into we need a 16 for this.
Stupendous 16.
Sure. The Stupendous 16, where we will revisit you're thinking about it, Bob characters and the other category, which is weird to say. But until then, my name's Scott.
The Bobtastic 16.
We'll workshop
it. My name is Matt.
And I'm Dan.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.